Steel City. Is everybody ready to go? Let's proclaim the greatest radio show.
Welcome, fans, to another episode of The Spread. I'm your host, Jim Sella, in studio with co-host Jay Dash. We got a quick fantasy football segment for you. Dash is a fantasy draft for hire, so apparently all his friends who have kids and don't have time to do it themselves just hire him, and he gets B-plus ratings. So he says.
Yeah, I make over $50,000 a year drafting for people.
Don't even need to play it. Just draft.
Please believe.
Well, what pick did you end up with?
First, let's say this was a standard 10-team league on NFL.com. So if you're doing your draft on there, maybe you want to pay attention here. Or really, even if you draft somewhere else, it should go somewhat like this.
But not a PPR league.
No, this is going to be a different type of draft than a PPR league. This is more for standard leagues only. And seeing that it's a standard league, I wanted to go running backs early, obviously.
Believe it.
But I had the fourth pick overall. And, you know, in our rankings, I had Jamal Charles ranked second overall. And he fell to me, so I took him. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go with one of the top 5 running backs, whoever it was. Whatever one I liked the best that was there, I was going to take. And that was my guy.
Who went number 1 overall in your league?
Number 1 overall was Le'Veon Bell. No surprise there. Adrian
No.
Peterson went second, and then Marshawn Lynch actually went third. So I got to decide between Jamal Charles and Eddie Lacy.
Charles is a better pick. I hate Lacy. I got a personal vendetta with the guy.
I don't hate him, but I do like Charles more. But that's what you want to do, is let people fall to you early in the draft and then go get your sleepers, maybe grab people a little early or late in the draft. But my second pick was Sean McCoy. Like I said, this guy was 10th on my draft board, and that's what I want to do. I want to let the guys fall to me. I got my 2 running backs early, so now I have probably the best running back combo in this league.
Bold statement from a bold man.
Well, I'm telling you, man, it's going to be hard for other teams to compare with Jamal Charles and LaShawn McCoy at running back.
I agree.
Other people are taking Aaron Rodgers, went in the first round. Andrew Luck went at the top of the second round. There's a lot of receivers already gone. The first receiver wasn't even Antonio Brown. It was Des Bryant, actually. Antonio Brown went 9th.
Well, Brown's more of a PPR guy than a standard league guy. Not that the big yards and touchdowns in.
Yeah,
but
he's an everything guy. But in the third round, that's when I wanted to take my first wide receiver, seeing that I went running back in the first 2 rounds. Now, I was hoping Randall Cobb was there. I had him lined up to pick. But
he just got hurt last night. They thought he broke his collarbone, but now they think it could just be
it's not a broken collarbone. I did hear that.
Sore shoulder or something like that. It could have been like a quick sublux when the shoulder pops out and goes back in real quick. So it just like stretches everything out, and you take a week or 2 off.
I mean, I'd still like to draft that guy pretty early.
Yeah, faux show.
But yeah, he actually went 3 picks before my pick. But there was still Elshon Jeffrey out there who I did end up taking. And T.Y. Hilton was out there as well. So I had a couple choices to go with. And I went with Elshon Jeffrey. I think he's going to have a pretty big season. Yeah, I went with him over Hilton. I mean, I think Jeffrey is pretty much the best target in Chicago. Yeah, Hilton is the best target in Indianapolis too. But Indianapolis has a lot more targets around Andrew Luck. While Jay Cutler, I mean, this is his main guy right here, Elshon Jeffrey.
Yeah, because Kevin White's legs beat.
All right, and then in the 4th round, I targeted a quarterback. Like I said, Andrew Luck and Aaron Rodgers went real early, and I'd rather go with McCoy and the big-time receiver before them. But like I said before, Drew Brees and Eli Manning have been going in the 4th, 5th, 6th round in a lot of drafts, and I think that's a little bit too late for them. I think they could put up similar seasons to Aaron Rodgers and Andrew Luck. Now, they were both on the board, and I actually do have Drew Brees ranked higher than Peyton Manning, but for some reason I just decided to go with Peyton Manning. I mean, I have them pretty close here, and I had my choice, so I decided to go with Manning there.
Peyton's got the better weapons.
Yeah, so I mean, you look, now I got Manning, Charles, and McCoy as my quarterback and my running backs. My number 1 receiver, Elshon Jeffrey. Your team's starting to round out pretty well right now. And in the 5th round, I was deciding whether or not if I wanted to grab Arian Foster or go with another wide receiver. I looked, Arian Foster was ranked, 115 to 130, something like that. And I figured I could maybe wait until the 6th round and then grab him. So instead, I went with Andre Johnson. you were just talking about T.Y. Hilton. I think Andre Johnson's going to get a lot of targets out there too. And in the 5th round, I think that's a very nice pick to have at number 44. Now, I will say Latavius Murray was actually out there, and I could have went with him. I really like Latavius Murray, but like I said, I already had 2 running backs. I needed a second wide receiver. I decided to go with Andre Johnson. I think he's going to have a bigger year than he had last year. So I skipped Arian Foster, but I actually ended up missing out on him as well. I did not get him in the 6th round. So what you want to do is grab Arian Foster in the 5th round, I believe, unless you're really stacked at running back early. But in the 6th round, I ended up taking Sammy Watkins. This is a guy I think fell a little bit too far at pick number 57. Like I said, I'm letting these guys fall to me.
And Buffalo's quarterbacks ripped the Steelers a new one last night, so we might be wrong about them up there.
Well, I tell you what, E.J. Manuel looked pretty good, didn't he? He was hitting his spots. Now, I don't expect him to be a beast or anything this season, but Sammy Watkins is a beast, and if E.J. Manuel can get him the ball, he's going to have a huge season.
Who's better, Watkins or Bryant?
Oh, I don't know, man. We'll have to see. Let that play out. I mean, right now, it seems like Martavis Bryant had the better season last year, but Sammy Watkins is a beast too. We're going to have to let that play out and see how it turns out. But right now, Watkins has the upper hand because Martavis is smoking bud.
Too much reefer.
7th round, I went with another wide receiver. Back-to-back wide receivers. Now I'm filling out my wide receivers real nice. I took Golden Tate. So now I have Elshon Jeffrey, Andre Johnson, Sammy Watkins, and Golden Tate. So my receiving core looks good at this point, and I have the rest of the draft to fill out my team how I would like.
I don't like Golden Tate either. It's another one of those personal vendettas, so I'm not saying he's a bad pick. I just want to punch the guy in the face.
Well, listen, I like this pick at 64 because last season he had 1,300 and some yards receiving. I mean, he was their best receiver out there. Of course, Calvin Johnson was hurt, and that's why he's going lower in this draft. People don't expect him to put up the same exact numbers as last year, and I don't really either. But as a 4th wide receiver, there is that upside that maybe he really is that guy he showed last year. So there's a possibility he could turn into my number 2 if Andre Johnson doesn't put it together. Or, I mean, I still got Sammy Watkins too. So I got a lot of options here in case someone doesn't work out.
Yeah, Tate, I mean, people could say he might not play as well because Calvin Johnson will be more healthy, but the offense didn't really play that well last year. So if Stafford's playing back to his level, he can easily have 2 1,000-yard receivers.
Yeah, I believe so.
That's not out of the question at all.
In the 8th round, I'm going back to running back. I needed to find another running back.
Bye week.
Like I said, yeah, I only have 2 running backs at this point. Now, like I said, I wanted Arian Foster. That didn't really work out. It wouldn't have helped out in the beginning anyways. So that's why I went receiver after that. There really wasn't a running back out there that I trusted a lot. And look, Sammy Watkins, Golden Tate, these are big-time receivers. So I'm going to go with them over the secondary type running backs at this point, but I did end up getting CJ Spiller in the 8th round, and I think that's great value too. Look, pick number 77. Now I know this isn't a PPR league, but this guy's still gonna rack up a lot of yardage. I mean, he's gonna get some carries along with Mark Ingram out there, and he's gonna be used pretty heavily in the passing game as well, I believe. But I mean, he's not gonna be a 1,000-yard receiver or anything like that. But there's also the question of whether or not he can stay healthy. This is a guy that seems to get injured a lot as well.
You little girl.
But, I mean, I like C.J. Spiller in New Orleans offense. You've seen Drew Brees turn the type of running back that C.J. Spiller is into fantasy beast. I mean, just look at Reggie Bush. This guy had huge years with New Orleans, but he's not that great of a football player. C.J. Spiller might be a better football player than Reggie Bush, so there is a possibility he could give you huge upside.
Do you worry a lot about bye weeks? I mean, outside
Not at
of
all.
getting a lot of, I mean, if you have 3 starters who have the same bye week, you might be in a little trouble. But
I mean, it
that's
sucks, but
hard
I don't
for that to even occur unless you're taking players from the same team.
Yeah, I really don't worry about it because if you think about it, man, you drop a lot of your later picks at least during the season and pick up other players that you end up starting a lot of times. So who knows? It doesn't even end up usually how you draft, and you fill it out as the season goes along. But in the 9th round, people started taking kickers and defenses at this point.
Kicker is my last pick almost every time. I mean,
Martavis Bryant actually went in this round as well. People were starting to take chances on guys, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I sort of did the same thing, but look, I didn't grab my tight end yet. I obviously missed out on Gronkowski early. Jimmy Graham, I was thinking about at one point. I think it was pick 31 or something. He went. I was thinking about him over Peyton Manning if he'd have made it, but he didn't make it to me. So what I did, I just waited until the 9th round here, pick 84, and I grabbed Antonio Gates, a guy that is probably a top 12 tight end when he isn't suspended, and he's going to miss 4 games. So I figured at this point, I'll get myself the starting tight end, but I'll have to go grab one here in a couple rounds to fill in for him for the first 4 weeks.
Him and Martavis are smoking together.
No, Antonio Gates got busted with steroids, I believe it was. Some kind of steroid.
He's a beast. He does steroids. Who cares?
He is a beast. Now, NFL.com said this next pick was my worst pick, but this is a guy I kind of I really like. I was targeting in this draft is Danny Woodhead. I took him at pick 97. He's actually going around pick 140. So I went way up to grab this guy. Like I said, later in the draft, I'm going to go grab my sleepers rather than wait for guys to keep falling to me. Because the guys that are falling to me at this point might be Michael Crabtree, Mike Wallace. And I'm not huge on these guys, you know what I mean? So I'll go grab some of my sleepers at this point. And Danny Woodhead, I mean, if you look in 2013, man, he was a huge part of this offense. And he was huge in the passing game, and he got a pretty decent amount of rushing yards as well, and that was with Ryan Matthews as the feature running back who gained over 1,200 yards that season. And Danny Woodhead looks healthy right now, and he looks like he's going to be a big part of this offense this season. So I like this as my number 4 running back, Danny Woodhead.
Woodhead.
He's a beast, man.
Anytime I ever had him, he crapped out on me, but then when I drop him is when he starts rolling hard. Loves it.
All right, in the 11th round, maybe a little bit of a reach here too, but we were talking about this in a lot of our fantasy segments that Jason Witten should have a bigger year this season with Tony Romo giving him more targets because really it's Dez Bryant and they got Terrence Williams on the other side, and that's not a guy you want to target a lot. So Jason Witten could end up being the second target for Tony Romo, and there's a lot of questions in their run game still. Who is even going to be the starting running back at this point? So I expect Jason Witten to have a bigger year, and I'm only needing him for 4 weeks too. I might end up dropping him after 4 weeks if he's not a complete beast when Antonio Gates gets back.
I like Witten. I wouldn't be upset if he ended up being my starting tight end. He's not going to be great.
Yeah, he's not terrible.
But yeah, he's not terrible by any means. He'll get the targets. He's always been solid.
And then in the 12th round, this is a guy I was really targeting. And I said he was a value pick in our last fantasy segment we did. This is Arizona running back David Johnson. I picked him at pick number 117 here in the 12th round. This is a guy that has been compared to Forte, actually. He is better than Andre Ellington running between the tackles. And he is also at least just as good as Andre Ellington in the passing game. The Arizona Cardinals have already come out and said this guy is going to be a significant piece of this offense this season, and I believe he could actually overtake Andre Ellington as the main running back in this system, and I have real high hopes for David Johnson. But at this point, have your sleepers and maybe take a chance on one here, because I mean, after this, you're going to be wanting to draft a defense and a kicker and maybe one more sleeper or one other position you need if you want to grab a second quarterback or a second tight end if you haven't grabbed one yet, something like that. But I actually went with defense in the 13th round and kicker in the 14th round, while I left one more sleeper to the very end because I looked and seen that this guy was ranked over number 800 on the draft list, and it's Brandon Coleman. But we'll talk about him in a second. I drafted Carolina Panthers defense. I let everybody take the defenses they wanted and took the one that was best left. And they also play the Jacksonville Jaguars in week 1. And it's possible I drop them after week 1, week 2, week 3. Who knows? You drop your defenses 90% of the time as the season goes along. I'm going to take a good defense that has a good matchup in the first week. And then at pick 14, go with your kicker, whoever is left. I don't even care at this point. Yeah. I mean, Matt Bryant was the best guy there in my belief.
Don't take Garrett Hartley.
Yeah, don't take Garrett Hartley. I mean, Mason Crosby was almost there at my pick. I was thinking about him. Matt Bryant ended up being that guy, and I think Atlanta has a pretty good offense this season. I think they're going to be better at running back. I think Matt Ryan's going to have a better season. They obviously got their 2 big-time wide receivers out there. I like Atlanta's offense, and if they stall a lot because Matt Ryan isn't on top of his game, that's even better for Matt Bryant.
Speaking about the Panthers defense real quick, I know me and you usually deploy the same method towards the end of the season. If you got a couple guys you know that are beat, you know you're going to be in the playoffs, go out and find a couple defenses in the playoffs that have good matchups.
Yes.
Go pick them up a little bit earlier. Stash them on your bench so that when the playoffs start, you got the team, going against the worst offense in the playoffs, and it gives you a little bit of a better chance.
Yeah, I'd start looking at that with about 3 weeks left in the season. Go look and see what defenses are out there, see who they play in the playoffs. This is if you're going to be a playoff team, obviously.
Right.
And just find some good matchups and maybe hold 2 or 3 defenses at that point. If you can find a defense that has 2 good matchups, then you only need 2 defenses. If you need 3 defenses to find 3 good matchups, do it that way. But yeah, I really like that strategy.
Anything to give you an edge.
And then, like I said, here in the 15th round, you want to pick a sleeper if you already picked your kicker or whatever. And Brandon Coleman, this is a guy that's already the 3rd receiver in New Orleans. He's a rookie. He's a big guy. I think he's 6'6". And let's not forget, Colston is still out there. I could have actually drafted him. I could have drafted Eddie Royal. I could have drafted Stedman Bailey. And I could have drafted... Kenny Britt's out there, Brian Quick's out there. I like all these guys. I think that they have sleeper value in them, especially Eddie Royal out there. I mean, I don't even have him as a sleeper. I have him as a pick that could go something like 10th, 11th round, and he's still out there. And I probably should have took him. But I think Brandon Coleman can overtake Marcus Colston in this offense and become the number 2 receiver next to Brandon Cooks out there. And really, if you have the number 2 receiver in New Orleans, he could put up huge numbers for you with Drew Brees at quarterback.
Do you remember off the top of your head who went first, Dwayne Allen or Coby Fleener?
Yeah, it was Dwayne Allen.
Do you remember about where he went?
Yeah, he went at pick number 101.
So he went before Fleener. We had him at 126, 25?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, it depends on how you're drafting and what you
right,
need at
and
what
we were
point
doing
and what's
rankings
left.
for PPR leagues too, so it's a little
Yeah,
different.
I mean, it's all different. And yeah, I mean, that's a big difference here too, is Dwayne Allen compared to Coby Fleener. Coby Fleener gets a lot more catches, but they ended up with the same amount of touchdowns last season as well. And like I said, Coby Fleener has a lot of flaws. He has bad hands. He can't block well, so that's going to keep him off the field a little bit. I like Allen going before Fleener, actually. But yeah, I mean, just find the guys you want. Let people fall to you early, and then later in the draft, go grab the guys you want maybe a round or 2 early just so you don't miss out on them and aren't happy with your bench, because you want guys that you like as well. It's not just about grabbing the best player available at all times, especially later in the draft. Early, like I said, let guys fall to you, and you're going to have a good team. Like I said, they gave me a B+ grade, said I'm going to be 9-5 and 3rd place in my division, and I'll take that any day because they don't know everything. They said Danny Woodhead's a terrible pick. I think Danny Woodhead is a good pick, so you never know.
If you're a new fantasy player, don't just keep taking the guy who's the top player on your board, because not on your board, but on the board, because those rankings sometimes lie. Last year they had Bishop Sankey as like the 3rd best running back to take, and he ended up with like 300 yards rushing for the whole season. So do your homework. Listen to the show.
Like I said, Arian Foster, grab him at least no later than the 5th round. And Victor Cruz, too. Go grab that guy. He's ranked over number 100. Draft him a few rounds earlier as well, because Victor Cruz is going to have a better season than a lot of these rankings suggest.
Believe it. But that's all we got for you today, folks. Thanks for listening. Thank you, Dash, for coming in. Fans, you could follow us on Twitter at bet_the_spread. You could follow me on Twitter at betjimthewin. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/betthespread. Keep coming back to YouTube. Keep clicking subscribe, and good luck with your fantasy draft. Hopefully you get an A and not a crappy B+ like that.